One day I arrived and heard laughter in my living room. My daughter-in-law was showing the house to a buyer. "I was thinking of selling it, Eleanor," she said. "After all, you've already lived your life." I answered calmly. "And you? You've just started to ruin yours." The silence fell like a hammer. She turned pale. I will never forget the sound of that laughter. It was Tuesday afternoon when I returned from my doctor's appointment. I had barely closed the front door when I heard them. Unfamiliar laughs bouncing off the walls I had raised myself 35 years ago. Laughter that didn't belong to me, in a house that did. I left my purse in the entryway. My hands were shaking, not from fear, but from something I couldn't yet name. I walked slowly toward the living room, each step on the solid hardwood floors I had chosen piece by piece. And then I saw them. Chloe, my daughter-in-law, was standing by the main window, pointing to the backyard with that proprietary gesture she had perfected over the last few months. Beside her, a man in a gray suit was taking pictures with his cell phone. A man I had never seen in my life. "The finishes are original," she was saying with a bright smile. "Look at these high ceilings, this natural light. It's a real gem of a property." I stood frozen in the doorway. The stranger nodded, writing something in a notebook. "And what's the asking price?" Chloe didn't even flinch. $800,000. It's a fair price considering the neighborhood and the lot size. $800,000. The exact value of my house. The number that only appeared on my private documents. I felt the air grow thick. Then she saw me. Her eyes met mine for a fraction of a second. And in that instant, something in her expression changed. It wasn't shame. It was calculation. She was measuring what to say, how to get out of this. "Oh, Eleanor," she said, her voice far too sweet. "I didn't hear you come in." I didn't answer. I just held her gaze while the stranger extended his hand to me. "Good afternoon, ma'am. I'm Mr. Wallace. I came to see the property." My mouth moved on its own. "To see? My property?" Chloe let out a nervous laugh. "Well, I just thought it would be a good idea to explore options." She moved closer to me, lowering her voice as if sharing a secret. "After all, you've already lived your life, Eleanor. This house is too big for just one person. Don't you think it would be better to sell it so we could all enjoy that money?" The silence that followed was deafening. Mr. Wallace coughed uncomfortably, looking between Chloe and me as if he'd just realized he'd walked into a minefield. But I didn't take my eyes off her, off this woman who had arrived at my home 2 years ago asking for shelter, who slept in my sheets, who ate from my plates, who swore to my son that she would love him for richer or poorer. "You've already lived your life." Those 5 words circled in my head like angry bees. I took a deep breath. I felt the blood rush to my cheeks, not from embarrassment, but from something more primitive, more ancient, something that had been dormant in me for too long. When I spoke, my voice came out calm, too calm. "And you." I paused, letting each word drop like a stone in still water. "Have just started to ruin yours." Chloe blinked. The smile froze on her face. "Excuse me?" I didn't repeat myself. I just turned to Mr. Wallace, who was already putting his notebook away with obvious haste. "Mr. Wallace, I'm sorry you've wasted your time," I said with icy courtesy. "This house is not for sale. It has never been for sale. And whoever told you otherwise has no right over it." The man nodded quickly, murmuring apologies as he headed for the door. Chloe tried to stop him, but it was too late. The door closed with a solid thud. And then we were alone. Chloe turned to me, and for the first time since I'd met her, I saw something different in her eyes. It wasn't remorse. It was barely contained fury. "How dare you humiliate me like that?" she hissed. "I was just trying to help. This house is falling apart. You can't maintain it anymore. And Ryan." "And I." "Ryan and you," I interrupted, "live here because of my generosity. You eat my food, you sleep under my roof, and now I discover you're trying to sell what doesn't belong to you." She turned pale, completely pale. "I wasn't. I just wanted." "What did you want, Chloe?" My voice was still calm, but every word was as sharp as a scalpel. "To take my house from me while I'm still breathing? To leave me with nothing because you decided I'm not worth anything anymore?" She didn't answer. Her lips trembled. I walked toward her, and even though I'm 6 inches shorter than her, In that moment, I felt like I was towering over her. "This conversation isn't over," I whispered. "But I'm going to give you some advice. You better pray your husband doesn't find out about this before I decide what to do with you." I turned and walked up the stairs to my bedroom. My legs barely held me, but I couldn't let her see it. I couldn't let her know that inside I was falling to pieces. I locked the door. I sat on the edge of my bed. The same bed where I slept with my husband for 30 years, where I cared for him in his final days, where I cried his death until I had no tears left. And only then, in the silence of my own room, did I let the tremor in my hands spread to my whole body. "You've already lived your life." How dared she? How dared she look at me and decide that my time was over, that I no longer deserved even the roof I built with my own hands? I clenched my fists in my lap, because that was the problem. Chloe didn't know who I was. She didn't know this house wasn't just walls and windows. It was my work, my design, my sacrifice. And worse, she didn't know how far I was capable of going to protect it. But she was about to find out. Downstairs, I heard hurried footsteps. A door opening. Ryan's voice asking what had happened. Chloe's shrill voice inventing her version of events. I got up and walked to the window. From there, I could see the garden I planted with my own hands, the lemon tree I planted when Ryan was born, the iron bench where my husband and I drank coffee every morning. This wasn't just my house, it was my entire life, and nobody, absolutely nobody, was going to take it from me. If this story is touching your heart and you want to know how it ends, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss a single chapter. Because what's coming, nobody expected. I pressed my forehead against the cold glass of the window. Chloe had just made the biggest mistake of her life. She just didn't know it yet. That night, I didn't go down for dinner. I heard the soft knocks on my door, the voice of Ryan, my son, asking if I was okay, saying we needed to talk. But I didn't answer, because if I opened that door, if I saw his face, I might say things I couldn't take back. Instead, I stayed seated in the armchair by the window, watching the shadows in the garden as night swallowed the day's colors. And there, in that silence, I did something I hadn't done in years. I remembered. I remembered the woman I used to be. My name is Eleanor Morgan. I'm 68 years old, but there was a time when 68 seemed like a distant eternity. There was a time when I was unstoppable. I closed my eyes and saw myself at 33, my dark hair pulled back in a ponytail, my hands stained with ink and plaster, leaning over a drafting table in a tiny office that barely had windows. It was 1990. I had just gotten my architect's license in a world that still looked sideways at women with hard hats and blueprints under their arms. My husband, Arthur, worked as an accountant at a mid-sized firm. Ryan was just 3 years old and ran barefoot through our rented apartment in a cramped downtown building, a 2-bedroom place where the upstairs neighbors made so much noise it sounded like they were moving furniture at midnight. "Eleanor," Arthur would tell me as we drank instant coffee in the early morning, "one day we're going to have our own house, one that you design, one that's just ours." I would smile, nod, but inside I was thinking, not one day, soon, because I was not one to wait. For 5 years, I worked 3 simultaneous jobs. I designed houses by day for a firm where they paid me half what my male colleagues made. In the afternoons, I taught technical drawing at a community college. And at night, after putting Ryan to bed, I would lock myself at the dining room table and design freelance projects for small builders who needed cheap, fast plans. Arthur never asked me to stop. He never said, "That's enough," or "Get some rest." He took care of Ryan when I had deadlines, made me tea when my eyes couldn't focus on the numbers anymore, massaged my shoulders when the weight of our worries bent my back. "You're the strongest woman I know," he'd whisper in my ear. And I believed him because I had to. In 1995, after 5 years of sleeping no more than 4 hours a night, of saving every dollar that came into the house, of turning down parties and vacations, we finally did it. We bought the lot. It wasn't big, just under a 1/4 acre in a suburb south of the city, in an area that was almost rural back then, but it was ours. I remember the day I first set foot on that piece of land. It still smelled of recent rain. There were tall weeds and rocks everywhere. Arthur took my hand and asked, "What do you see?" I smiled, closed my eyes, and saw everything. I saw the walls rising. I saw the windows letting in the morning light. I saw a backyard where Ryan could play. I saw a big kitchen where we'd cook Sunday dinners. I saw a study where we'd keep the books we loved. I saw a home. I see our life, I told him. And then I got to work. I designed every inch of this house, every angle, every window. I chose the orientation to capture the morning sun in the bedrooms. I calculated the height of the ceilings so the heat wouldn't pool in the summer. I designed deep closets, spacious pantries, bathrooms with natural ventilation. But I didn't just design. I also built. Yes, myself. Because we didn't have the money to hire a full crew. So I learned. I learned to mix cement, to lay bricks, to level floors. I learned to use the saw, the sander, the hammer. My hands, which had once only known pencils and rulers, became covered in calluses and scars. Arthur worked with me every weekend. Ryan played among the bags of sand, building his own castles while we raised the walls of ours. It took us 3 years. 3 years of literal blood, sweat, and tears. 3 years of nights where I'd fall asleep with aching hands. 3 years of waking up before dawn to check that everything was moving forward. But in 1998, we finally moved in. I remember how I felt that first night sleeping in this house, lying on the master bedroom floor because we didn't have our new bed yet, staring at the ceiling I had planned, feeling the walls I had helped raise. I cried. I cried so hard Arthur got scared. "What's wrong?" he asked, holding me. "Nothing," I whispered. "It's just. We did it. We really did it." This house wasn't just bricks and concrete. It was living proof that when a woman decides on something, the entire universe has to move aside. The years passed. Ryan grew up within these walls. He learned to ride his bike in this yard. He celebrated birthdays in this living room. He brought home friends, girlfriends, dreams. Arthur and I grew old here. We celebrated anniversaries, mourned losses, planted trees, repainted rooms. Every corner of this house held a piece of us. And then, 8 years ago, Arthur got sick, pancreatic cancer. Stage 4. 6 months, the doctors said. He lived for 11. 11 months where this house transformed into a hospital, a refuge, a temple. Where I transformed into a nurse, a warrior, a premature widow. I cared for him here, in our bedroom, in that bed where we had slept together for 30 years. I gave him his medicine. I bathed him when he could no longer do it himself. I read him his favorite books. I held his hand while the pain split him in two. And he died here, in my arms, looking at me with those eyes that had seen me build empires from scratch. His last words were, "Take care of her. She's yours, too." He wasn't talking about me. He was talking about the house. Because he knew this house was more than a place. It was my legacy, my masterpiece, my proof that Eleanor Morgan had existed and had left her mark on this world. After he died, Ryan wanted me to move in with him. "Mom, this house is too big for you alone," he'd say. "Come live with us." But I refused. How could I abandon the only place where I could still feel Arthur? How could I leave the trees we planted together, the rooms we painted, the garden where I spread his ashes? I stayed. Alone, yes, but at home. And now, 27 years after finishing it, 35 since I bought the land, someone could walk into my living room and decide that none of that mattered, that I had lived long enough, that it was time to sell. I opened my eyes. Night had completely fallen. The city lights twinkled in the distance like fallen stars. I stood up from the armchair. My knees protested, but I ignored them. I walked to my closet and pulled out an old shoebox I kept on the top shelf. Inside were the original blueprints of this house, yellowed, folded, stained with coffee and tears and construction dust. I unfolded them on the bed. I ran my fingers over the lines I had drawn decades ago. Every measurement, every calculation, every dream made real. This house was worth $800,000 according to the current market, but to me, it was priceless. And if Chloe thought she could snatch it from me with fake smiles and unknown buyers, she was terribly mistaken. Because I was Eleanor Morgan, the woman who built her own castle, and castles do not surrender without a fight. I folded the blueprints carefully, put them back in their box, and then I did something I hadn't done since Arthur's funeral. I knelt by the bed and prayed. I didn't pray for patience. I didn't pray for forgiveness. I prayed for strength. Because I was going to need it. The next morning, I went down for breakfast as if nothing had happened. Chloe was in the kitchen making coffee. When she saw me enter, she visibly tensed. Her hands paused on the coffee pot. "Good morning," I said in a neutral, almost friendly voice. She blinked, confused. "Good morning, Eleanor." I didn't say anything else. I simply took out my favorite mug, the blue ceramic one Arthur gave me for our 10th anniversary, and waited my turn to pour my coffee. The silence in the kitchen was so thick you could cut it with a knife. Ryan came in minutes later, with that look of a man who slept poorly and woke up worse. My son. My only son. 43 years old. A civil engineer, his hair already thinning at the crown, with those wrinkles around his eyes that made him look older than he was. He looked at me as if expecting an explosion, but I just smiled. "Sleep well, honey?" His confusion was obvious. Yeah, Mom. You?" Like always, I took a sip of my coffee. "I'm going out for a few hours. I have some things to take care of." Chloe and Ryan exchanged a quick glance. She looked relieved. He looked cautious. I didn't give them time to ask any more questions. I took my keys, my purse, and left the house without looking back. But I didn't go to take care of things. I went to remember. I drove to a coffee shop in Wash Park, one I used to go to with Arthur when we needed to escape the noise of the world. I sat at a table by the window, ordered a black coffee, and let my mind travel back. 2 years. It had only been 2 years since Ryan showed up with Chloe. It was an October afternoon. I was pruning the rose bushes in the garden when I heard the doorbell. I opened the door, and there was my son with a suitcase in each hand and an unknown woman by his side. "Mom," he said with that nervous smile he used when he knew he was about to ask for something big. "This is Chloe, my girlfriend." Girlfriend. Not even fiancée, just girlfriend. Chloe was 32 then. Ryan was 41. A 9-year difference. Long, dark hair, perfectly straight. Impeccable, blood-red nails. Tight clothes that screamed brand name without actually being one. And that smile. God. That smile looked like it had been practiced in a mirror. "So nice to meet you, Mrs. Morgan," she said in a soft, almost childish voice. "Ryan has told me so much about you." I shook her hand. "Cold? Too cold for a warm day. It's nice to meet you, too." I looked at my son. "Are you coming in, or just visiting?" Ryan cleared his throat. "Actually, Mom, we need a favor." Of course they did. It turned out Ryan had lost his job 3 months earlier. Restructuring at the company, they said. Last one in, first one out. And Chloe, he told me, worked in sales but was between jobs. Between jobs. What an elegant way to say unemployed. "We need to stay here for a little while," Ryan said, not looking me in the eye, "just until I get something new." "A couple of months, max." A couple of months. I should have said no. I should have asked why they didn't seek help from her family. I should have set clear rules, boundaries, specific dates. But I looked at my son, this man I had raised alone after Arthur's death, and I saw something in his eyes that scared me. Desperation. "All right," I said. "You can stay." Chloe smiled. A victorious smile she tried to disguise as gratitude. "Thank you, Eleanor. You don't know how much this means to us." Eleanor. She was already calling me by my first name, not even married. The first few days were tolerable. Chloe was polite, helpful. She helped clean. She made breakfast. She asked if I needed anything from the grocery store. Ryan spent his mornings sending out resumes and doing video interviews. In the afternoons, he'd go out with Chloe to explore the neighborhood, or they'd lock themselves in their room. I tried to give them space. After all, they were a couple. They needed privacy. But then the changes began. Small at first. Almost imperceptible. Chloe started reorganizing the kitchen. "It's just more practical this way, Eleanor," she'd say, moving my pots from their spots. She changed the curtains in the living room without asking me. The others were just so old, she justified. She brought in a new sofa she got on sale and relegated my favorite armchair to the basement. This one is more modern, she assured me. Every time I protested, Ryan would intervene. Mom, it's not a big deal. She's just trying to help. Help? By erasing my presence from my own house? But I kept quiet, because I didn't want to be that mother-in-law, the one who complains, the one who interferes, the one who makes drama over everything. So I swallowed my discomfort and smiled. The couple of months turned into 6, then a year, then a year and a half. Ryan found sporadic freelance work, but nothing stable. Chloe kept looking, but never found anything that was the right fit. And meanwhile, my house stopped being mine. Chloe invited friends over without telling me. They'd celebrate birthdays for people I didn't know in my living room. They used my good china, the set I only brought out for Christmas. They left dirty dishes in the sink for me to wash. When I asked them to contribute to expenses, Ryan would look at me with sad puppy dog eyes. Mom, you know things are tight, as soon as things get better, but things never got better. And Chloe behaved less like a guest and more like an owner every day. She started calling my house our house, referring to my garden as our garden, my living room as our living room. When her friends asked, she'd say, "Yes, we live here, it's the family home," as if I were just a tenant on my own property. Ryan seemed blind. Or worse, he didn't want to see. I confronted him one night. It was 6 months ago, after Chloe redecorated my dining room without even consulting me. "Ryan," I said when we were alone, "we need to talk." He sighed, as if he already knew what was coming, as if he was tired of hearing it. "Mom, please, don't start." "Start what? Defending what's mine? Asking for a minimum of respect?" "Chloe respects you," he said, but his voice sounded hollow, like he was repeating a line he'd rehearsed. "She just wants the house to look nice, to be a pleasant place for everyone. It was pleasant before she got here." Ryan closed his eyes. "Mom, don't do this. Please." "Do what? Remind you that this house is mine? That you two are here out of my generosity? I know it's your house." He finally exploded. "You think I don't? You think I'm not reminded every single damn day how grateful I'm supposed to be?" I froze. "Chloe doesn't remind me of anything," he continued, his voice trembling. "She just acts as if she has a right to be here. I know, because I gave it to her." He ran his hands over his face. "Mom, I love her, and I need you to make an effort to get along with her. I love her." Those 3 words explained everything. My son was so in love, so blinded, that he couldn't see what I saw with crystal clarity. Chloe didn't love this house. She didn't love him, either. She loved the security, the comfort, the free roof over her head. But I couldn't tell him that, because when you tell a man that the woman he loves is just using him, he doesn't listen to you. He just hates you. So I swallowed the words. I nodded. And I let him believe he had won. But that night, lying in my bed, I knew something had broken between my son and me, something we might never be able to repair. And 3 months later, there I was, sitting in a coffee shop in Wash Park, drinking a cold coffee as I remembered how I'd gotten to this point, how I'd allowed a stranger to walk into my life and dismantle it, piece by piece, how I'd lost my son without even realizing the exact moment it happened. I paid the bill. I left the coffee shop, and as I walked to my car, I made a decision. I wasn't going to get my son back by arguing with him. I was going to get him back by showing him the truth. And for that, I needed evidence. Ants don't destroy a house in one day. They do it slowly, patiently, one crumb at a time, one piece of wood after another, until one day you realize the foundations are hollow and it's too late. That's how Chloe took my life from me, not with one blow, with 1,000 tiny stings that seemed insignificant at first. I returned home that afternoon determined to observe, to document, to see with new eyes what I had been ignoring for months, and what I saw chilled my blood. I walked in the front door, and the smell hit me first. It wasn't the usual scent, that mix of old wood and flowers from the garden that I loved. It was perfume. A cloying, heavy perfume that saturated the air like a toxic fog. Chloe had bought one of those electric air fresheners and plugged it in by the entryway. French vanilla, the label said. I hated vanilla. I walked to the kitchen. There she was, cooking something on the stove. When she saw me, her smile was instant. Too instant. Eleanor, you're back. I made chicken with green chili sauce for dinner. My stomach rumbled. I hadn't eaten anything since the coffee that morning. That's nice, I said, approaching the stove. But then I saw the plates on the counter. 2 plates, only 2, served generously with fluffy white rice, a fresh salad, and warm tortillas in a basket. And for me? I asked in a casual voice. Chloe didn't even look uncomfortable. Oh, I didn't know what time you'd be back, but there's more in the pot. You can serve yourself. You can serve yourself. As if I were a guest arriving late to dinner. I went to the stove. The pot was almost empty. There was just one small piece of chicken swimming in a thin sauce. No rice, no salad. The scraps. She was giving me the scraps in my own house. I didn't say anything. I served what was left on a plate, took a hard tortilla from the package on top of the fridge, not from the basket with the warm ones, and sat at the breakfast nook. Not in the dining room, because Chloe and Ryan were already settled there, eating, laughing, talking about some show they were watching together. I ate alone, in silence, looking out the window at the garden I had planted myself. The chicken was cold. That night, I decided to stay awake. I waited until I heard the bedroom doors close, until the hallway lights went out, until the house was plunged into that deep, midnight silence. Then I went downstairs, barefoot, like a thief in my own home, and started to look. First, the living room. The furniture Chloe had brought in wasn't on sale, as she'd claimed. I checked the tags still stuck to the underside. A high-end department store. Nordstrom or something? Each piece cost over $2,000. Where did she get that money if she was supposedly between jobs? I opened the drawers of the new console. Invoices. Piles of invoices in the name of Chloe Sanders. Credit cards. 4 different ones, all with balances in the red. I took photos with my phone. Every invoice, every statement I found, hidden between magazines. Chloe owed $16,000 on one card, $12,000 on another, $9,000 on the third, and $7,000 on the last one, $44,000 in debt. And I thought she had no money? I kept searching. In the study that used to be Arthur's, now converted into Chloe's office, I found something else. Printed out emails. Conversations with a lawyer named Linares, dated 2 months ago. Dear Miss Sanders, in response to your inquiry regarding obtaining power of attorney due to the owner's incapacity, I am writing to inform you that, my breath caught, incapacity of the owner. She was researching how to have me declared incompetent, how to take legal control of my own property. My hands were shaking so hard I almost dropped the papers. I photographed all of them, every line, every incriminating paragraph. There was more. An appraisal of the house done 3 weeks ago by a company I hadn't hired. $800,000, it said, and a handwritten note in the margin. Buyer interested. $15,000 in earnest money. $15,000. She had already taken money for a sale I hadn't authorized. I went back upstairs, my legs trembling. I locked myself in my room. I connected my phone to the old laptop I kept and transferred all the photos. The evidence was there, clear, irrefutable, but a part of me still couldn't believe it. Still wanted to think I had misunderstood, that maybe Chloe had an explanation. How naive I was. The following days were a silent nightmare. I started noticing things I'd ignored before, things I'd convinced myself weren't a big deal, like the way Chloe held meetings at my house without telling me. Her friends would arrive in the afternoons. They'd settle into the living room as if they owned it. They drank my wine, used my bathroom, left lipstick stains on my crystal glasses. I protested once. Chloe, I would have appreciated a heads up that you were having guests. She smiled with that fake sweetness I knew so well. Oh, Eleanor, I didn't think you'd mind. You're usually in your room anyway. We're not bothering you. In my room. As if I were an old woman secluded in a nursing home. Or the day I came home from the grocery store and found my bedroom door locked from the outside. Why is my door locked? I asked, the grocery bag still in my hands. Chloe came out of the kitchen, drying her hands. "Oh, I was just cleaning and didn't want the dust from the hallway to get in. It's open now." A lie. When I went in, everything was exactly as I'd left it. She hadn't cleaned anything. She had been searching for something. Documents, probably. The deed. I started locking everything up. My passport, my important papers, the deed to the house, which I used to keep in the study. And then the worst part began. The dinners. Chloe started making elaborate meals for herself and Ryan. Steaks, fresh pasta, desserts. But for me, there was always an excuse. "Oh, Eleanor, I thought you already ate. I only made a little. Ryan and I are on a diet. There are some leftovers from lunch in the fridge. You can heat those up." Always leftovers. Always cold. Always alone. One night, Ryan and Chloe had baked salmon with roasted potatoes and a caprese salad. I ate a ham sandwich I made for myself, sitting at the breakfast nook, while they laughed and poured wine in the dining room. My dining room, my wine, my house. And I was eating alone like a beggar. The worst part? Ryan didn't even notice. Or he didn't want to. When her meetings happened, Chloe had a perfect technique. "The house is beautiful," her friends would say. "Thank you," she'd reply, as if she'd built it with her own hands. "We've made a lot of improvements since we moved in." We've. As if they were the owners. And if I came downstairs while they were there, Chloe would look at me with a tight smile. "Eleanor, do you need something? We're in the middle of a meeting," as if I was interrupting, as if I had no right to be in my own living room. One afternoon, one of her friends asked me directly, "And you're Ryan's mom?" Before I could answer, Chloe jumped in with a syrupy voice. "Yes, she lives here with us. She's getting on in years and needs company." "Right, Eleanor? Lives here with us." As if they were the owners. As if I was the one who had moved in. I smiled. I nodded. And I went up to my room with my heart in pieces. That night, lying in my bed, staring at the ceiling I had designed, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. It wasn't sadness. It was rage. A deep, ancient rage, born from a dark place in my chest, spreading like fire through my veins. How had I allowed this? How had I let this woman walk into my life and unravel it? How had I let her treat me like garbage in my own home? But the rage wasn't just for Chloe. It was for myself. For being a coward. For staying silent. For smiling when I should have screamed. For being the nice mother-in-law when I should have been the owner of my own life. I got out of bed. I walked to the mirror. The woman looking back at me was 68 years old, wrinkles around her eyes, gray peeking through her colored hair, age spots on her hands. But she also had something else. She had the look of someone who had built empires, who had raised houses with her own hands, who had survived losses that would have destroyed other people. Enough, I told my reflection, and for the first time in 2 years, I felt like the woman in the mirror believed me. There are moments in life where everything changes in a second. A medical diagnosis, a call at midnight, a door opening to reveal something you shouldn't see. For me, that moment came on a Tuesday morning, 3 days after finding Chloe's deaths. Ryan had left early for a job interview. Chloe was still asleep, or so I thought. I went down to the kitchen to make coffee when I saw the envelope. It was on the dining room table. A large, manila envelope, with the logo of a law firm printed in the corner, Harrison, Stone, and Associates. The envelope was open. I should have left it. I should have respected her privacy. I should have. But it was too late for should-haves. I pulled out the documents, and what I read took the air from my lungs. It was a power of attorney form, drafted in the name of Chloe Sanders, granting her broad and general powers to administer, sell, mortgage, and perform any act of ownership over the property located at 47 Cedar Lane, Coyoacan. My house, my address. But the most terrifying part wasn't that. It was the signature at the bottom of the document. A shaky, irregular signature. That was supposedly mine. Except I had never signed that paper. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped the pages. There were more documents. A letter from the attorney, Mr. Harrison, requesting the appearance of Mrs. Eleanor Morgan to ratify the power of attorney, dated 2 weeks ago. and a handwritten response, supposedly in my handwriting, saying, "Due to health reasons, I cannot appear in person. I authorize my daughter-in-law, Chloe Sanders, to proceed on my behalf." My handwriting, or at least a near-perfect imitation of it. I felt the walls closing in. Chloe wasn't just planning to sell the house. She had already forged documents to do it. I photographed everything, every page, every fake signature, every incriminating line. And then I found something else, a photocopy of my state ID. But it wasn't my current one. It was an old one I had lost 2 years ago and reported as missing. How had she gotten it? The answer hit me like a ton of bricks. She had been going through my trash, my drawers, my old documents stored in boxes in the basement. She had been planning this for months. The sound of footsteps upstairs froze me. I quickly put everything back in the envelope and left it exactly as I'd found it. I went upstairs, trying to walk normally, though my heart was pounding so hard I thought it would burst from my chest. I needed help, real help. That same afternoon, without telling anyone, I drove to David Stone's office. David had been my partner on 3 architectural projects 20 years ago. He was an architect, but also a lawyer specializing in real estate. A man in his late 60s, with snow-white hair and sharp blue eyes that missed nothing. When his secretary showed me in, David stood up immediately with a huge smile. "Eleanor, how many years has it been?" He hugged me with that genuine affection only old friends can give. To what do I owe the honor? I sat across from his desk, and then, unable to hold it in any longer, I broke. I cried. I cried like I hadn't cried since Arthur's funeral. I cried for the humiliation, the betrayal, the rage I'd held in for months. David let me cry. He said nothing. He just passed me a box of tissues and waited. When I could finally speak, I told him everything. Every detail, every humiliation, every document I'd found. I showed him the photographs on my phone. His expression changed with each image, from concern to disbelief, from disbelief to contained fury. "This is forgery," he said finally, his voice grave. "It's fraud. Attempted theft. She could go to jail for this." "I know," I whispered. "Does Ryan know any of this?" I shook my head. "I don't think so. He's blinded. He thinks she loves him." David leaned back in his chair, looking at me with those eyes that had seen too much in his career. "Eleanor, you need to act fast. If she's already contacting law firms, if she already has forged documents, she's closer than you think to pulling this off. What do I do?" "First, we're going to that attorney's office. We're going to talk to Mr. Harrison and make it crystal clear that you never granted any power of attorney. That will invalidate any transaction she tries to make. And then, he paused. Then you need to decide how far you want to take this, because this isn't going to be fixed with a conversation. This is a legal battle, and your son is going to be caught in the middle." Those words landed like stones in my stomach. My son. My only son. "I need to think," I said. "Think fast. Every day that passes gives her more time to complete her plan." I left his office with my head spinning, but before I went home, I did something else. I drove to the law firm, Harrison, Stone, and Associates. It was a small building in a nice part of town. 2nd floor, brass plaque on the door. I took a deep breath and went in. The receptionist greeted me with a professional smile. "Good afternoon. How can I help you?" "I need to speak with Mr. Harrison. It's urgent." "Do you have an appointment?" "No, but it's about a power of attorney I supposedly granted and have never signed." The smile vanished. "One moment, please." She disappeared into an inner office. Minutes later, a man in his 50s came out. Impeccable suit, serious expression. "Mrs. Morgan? Please come in." He led me to his office. "Close the door. Tell me what's going on." I explained everything. I showed him the photographs. I showed him my current driver's license. His face grew paler and paler. "Mrs. Morgan," he said finally, "I have never processed any power of attorney in your name. I have never received these documents." I froze. "What? Is the logo on that envelope from my firm?" "Yes, but those documents are forgeries. Someone manufactured them using my letterhead, my name, my signature. All of it is fake. The world stopped. Are you sure? Completely. And this is extremely serious. They aren't just trying to steal your property. They are involving my firm in a fraud. He stood up, pacing. I need to file a formal complaint. And so do you. A complaint? With the district attorney. This is a federal crime, Mrs. Morgan, forgery of legal documents, fraud in the first degree. The person responsible for this could face between 4 and 12 years in prison. I felt dizzy. 12 years. Chloe could go to prison for 12 years. And Ryan. God, Ryan would be destroyed. I need time, I whispered, to talk to my son first. The attorney looked at me with compassion. I understand. But don't take too long. These criminals don't usually stop at the first attempt. If this plan fails, they'll try another. And another. Until they get what they want. I left there with my legs shaking. I sat in my car for I don't know how long, unable to start the engine, unable to move. Chloe wasn't just an opportunist. She wasn't just a freeloader. She was a criminal. A professional con artist who had chosen my family as her next victim. And my son slept next to her every night, with no idea who she really was. I started the car. I drove home on autopilot. When I arrived, it was already dark. The lights in the living room were on. I could hear the TV. I walked in quietly. Chloe and Ryan were on the sofa, watching a movie, sharing a blanket, eating popcorn. A perfect picture of a happy couple. Chloe saw me and smiled. That smile I now recognized for what it was. A mask. Eleanor, want some popcorn? I made extra. My voice came out surprisingly steady. No, thank you. I'm going up to rest. Sleep well, Ryan said, not looking away from the screen. I went up the stairs slowly. I locked myself in my room. And there, alone, I picked up my phone and dialed David's number. David, I said when he answered. I need you to do something else. I need you to investigate Chloe Sanders. Everything about her. Where she comes from. What she's done before. If she has a record. You suspect this isn't her first time? I suspect my son and I are just her latest victims. There was a pause on the other end. I'll do it. I have a contact who can help us. But, Eleanor, be prepared for what we might find. I'm already prepared, I lied. Because in reality, I had no idea what I was about to discover, or just how deep the pit was that Chloe had dragged my family into. 3 days later, David called me. Eleanor, I need you to come to my office. Now. His voice was tense, almost urgent. Did you find something? Not over the phone. Come now. He hung up before I could reply. I told Chloe I was going to a doctor's appointment. She barely looked up from her phone. Hope you feel better, Eleanor. The drive to David's office felt eternal. Every red light, every turn, every minute seemed to drag like molasses. When I finally arrived, David was waiting for me. His expression was grim, grimmer than I'd ever seen it. Sit down, he said, closing his office door. On his desk was a thick manila folder, full to bursting. My contact is a private investigator, David began. I gave him Chloe Sanders' full name and told him to check everything. Criminal records, credit history, social media, everything. He was quiet for a moment, as if deciding how to say what came next. David, you're scaring me. You should be scared. He opened the folder. Eleanor, Chloe Sanders is not who she says she is. My heart stopped. To begin with, he continued, pulling out documents. Her full name is Chloe Ann Sanders, 34 years old, born in Phoenix, Arizona. But there's something Ryan definitely doesn't know. He placed a document in front of me. A marriage certificate. Chloe is married. The world tilted. What? Legally married. To a man named Mark Jenkins. For 8 years. They never got divorced. The marriage is still active. I read the certificate, my hands trembling. There was her name, her signature, date, March 14th, 2017. That means, my voice broke, that her relationship with Ryan is, legally, it's nothing. If they tried to get married, it would be bigamy, a felony. David pulled out more papers. But there's more. So much more. He showed me a police report. Phoenix, Arizona. 2019. Chloe was reported by a woman named Patricia Peterson. The charge: fraud. Chloe was living with Patricia's son, convinced the family she needed help, and over the course of 6 months, she forged documents to try and sell a family property valued at $200,000. I felt sick. The charges were dropped because they reached an out-of-court settlement. The family paid her $10,000 to disappear and never come back. David moved to another document, but it didn't end there. In 2021, in Austin, Texas, another complaint. This time from a 60-year-old man named Michael Thompson. Chloe became his girlfriend, moved into his house, and in less than a year, she had drained his bank account. Over $20,000. More papers, more complaints, more victims. In 2022, in Santa Fe, an entire family. She convinced them she was a real estate agent, scammed them out of $15,000 as a down payment on a house that never existed. Every document was a hammer blow to my chest. And now she's here, David finished. In your house. With your son, following the exact same pattern she's used for years. I couldn't breathe. Literally, I couldn't get air into my lungs. Ryan, was all I could say. Ryan is with a professional grifter, a predator who picks vulnerable targets and bleeds them dry. David leaned forward. Eleanor, this woman is dangerous. She's not just trying to steal your house. This is what she does. It's her life. And the husband? Mark Jenkins? We tracked him down. He lives in Phoenix, works as a mechanic. When my investigator spoke to him, he said Chloe just disappeared 3 years ago. Took money, jewelry, documents. He looked for her for months, but eventually gave up. He never filed for divorce because, in his words, why waste money on a lawyer for someone I hope I never see again? He put a photograph on the desk. A man in his 40s, in mechanic's overalls, standing in front of a garage. He's willing to testify, if needed, to confirm their marriage is still active. I leaned back, feeling like my entire body weighed 1,000 pounds. I need to tell Ryan. Eleanor, think about this. When you tell your son, his world is going to collapse. You need to be prepared for that. What am I supposed to do? Let that woman keep manipulating him? Let her finish ruining him? No, but you need a plan. Because when Chloe finds out you've exposed her, she could get dangerous. She already is. David nodded. Which is why we have to be smart. Strategic. He closed the folder. I'm going to prepare all the legal documentation. We're going to file a formal complaint. Forgery, fraud, attempted theft. But in the meantime, you need to stay calm at home. Don't let her suspect a thing. I don't know if I can. You have to. Because if she gets spooked, if she thinks she's cornered, we don't know what she's capable of. I left that office with the folder under my arm, feeling like I was carrying liquid lead, not paper. I drove home in a daze. My mind replayed the images of all those complaints, all those victims, all those destroyed families, and now it was ours. When I arrived, the house was silent, too silent. I went upstairs, and that's when I heard them. Voices, coming from Ryan and Chloe's room, arguing. I moved closer, making no sound. The door was slightly open. You can't keep this up, Ryan, Chloe was saying, her voice frustrated. Your mom is suffocating us. Don't start, please. Don't start? We live in her house. We eat her food. Everything is hers. For how long? Are we just going to depend on her for the rest of our lives? I'm looking for work, Chloe. I just had an interview last week. And in the meantime, we just stay here like two freeloaders? Like teenagers living with mommy? There was a silence. What do you want me to do? Ryan's voice sounded tired, defeated. I want you to be a man, Ryan. I want you to set boundaries. Tell her that this house could be ours if she'd just sign it over. I mean, it's going to be yours anyway when when she's gone. She didn't say dies, but it hung in the air. I'm not asking her for that, Ryan replied. Well, then we're never going to have anything of our own. We'll never be independent. A pause. Sometimes I think you love your mom more than you love me. Don't say that. It's the truth. You always defend her. You always take her side. What about us, Ryan? What about our future? I couldn't listen anymore. I backed away silently. I went into my room. I locked the door. I sat on the edge of my bed, the folder still in my hands. And then, something inside me broke for good. It wasn't a dramatic snap. It was quiet, like the sound of a branch splitting under too much weight. For 2 years I had put up with it. I had stayed quiet. I had been understanding. I had let them treat me like a nuisance in my own home because I didn't want to be the difficult mother-in-law, because I didn't want to lose my son. But I had already lost him. I lost him the day he chose to believe her instead of me. I lost him the day he saw me eating alone at the breakfast nook and said nothing. I lost him the day he let her dismiss me with that condescending tone, and he just smiled. I opened the folder again. I looked at all those complaints, all those victims, and I made a decision. I was not going to be another victim. I was not going to end up like those people. Robbed, humiliated, destroyed. If Chloe wanted a war, she was going to get one. But it would be on my terms, on my battlefield. And she had no idea who she had messed with. Because I was Eleanor Morgan, the woman who built a house with her own hands, the woman who survived the death of her husband, the woman who raised her son alone. And women like me don't give up. We get up. That night, I didn't go down for dinner. I stayed in my room, planning. Every move, every step, every play, because Chloe was about to discover something none of her other victims had taught her. The old lionesses are the most dangerous. The next morning, I went down for breakfast with a smile. A smile it took me 20 minutes to practice in the mirror. But it had to be perfect, believable. Chloe looked up from her phone when I entered the kitchen. Her eyes scanned me with suspicion. "Good morning," I said, my voice cheerful. Too cheerful for someone who'd spent the night sleepless. "Good morning, Eleanor." Her reply was cautious. I poured my coffee. I sat at the table, and then I dropped the bomb I had prepared. "I've been thinking," I said, stirring my sugar slowly, "about what you said the other day, about the house." Chloe tensed immediately. "I didn't mean to offend you." "You didn't offend me." I took a sip of coffee. "You were right. This house is too big for me alone. And you two have been here for 2 years. Maybe it's time to make some changes." Chloe's eyes lit up like a shark sensing blood. "Changes? I'm old, Chloe. Tired. At my age, maintaining a property this size is exhausting." I sighed, theatrically. Maybe it would be good to consider selling, or doing something different with it. I could see the wheels spinning in her head, the calculations, the possibilities. "Well," she said, trying to sound casual, "if you need help with that, Ryan and I can support you. Look at options. Talk to agents." "Yes, maybe." I put my mug down. "But I don't want to rush. I need to think it through." I stood up, leaving her with the doubt, with the hook set, but not yet pulling. Perfect. That same afternoon, while Chloe was out with her friends and Ryan was at another interview, I made my real move. I called David. "I need you to investigate one more thing," I told him. "I want to know exactly how much money Chloe has spent in the last 2 years. Every big purchase, every payment, everything." "Why?" "Because if she's in debt for $44,000, that money was spent on something, and I want to know what." David was silent. "You think she's stealing from you?" "I think I need to know." 2 days later, I had my answer. David came to my house on a Thursday afternoon when he knew I'd be alone. He brought another folder. This one was thinner, but just as devastating. "We found movements on Chloe's credit cards that correspond with specific dates," he said, showing me statements. "Look at these purchases. Furniture for $2,000, clothes for $900, a TV for $2,500, jewelry for $800. Everything she's brought into this house," I murmured. "Exactly. But here's the interesting part. He pointed to specific dates. These payments were made 1 or 2 days after you made cash withdrawals from your account." I froze. "How do you know when I make withdrawals?" "Because my investigators spoke to your bank manager. Since it's a matter of potential fraud, he agreed to review your history. We found a pattern." He showed me a list. Dates of withdrawals from my account and dates of purchases by Chloe. almost always 1 or 2 days apart. Eleanor, where do you keep your cash? My blood ran cold. In a small safe. In my closet. Does Chloe know where it is? I don't think so. It's hidden behind some boxes. David looked at me with those eyes I now recognized. The ones that said, "You're in more trouble than you think. Check it, now." We went up to my room together. I opened the closet. I moved the boxes. I pulled out the small metal lockbox I'd bought years ago. I opened it with the key I always kept in my wallet. Inside, there should have been $15,000. Life savings. Money I kept for emergencies. I counted the bills, my hands shaking. $7,000. There's $8,000 missing. It can't be, I whispered. I lock it. I always lock it. David picked up the lockbox. He examined it. And then he pointed to the tiny scratches around the keyhole. It was forced. Probably with a lockpick or a thin tool. And then closed again, so you wouldn't notice. I sat on the bed. My legs wouldn't hold me. "She's stealing from me," I said out loud. "She's not just planning to sell the house. She's stealing my cash." "Yes, and this is enough to add theft to the charges." David sat next to me. "Eleanor, we have evidence of everything now. Forgery, fraud, theft. It's time to act." "Not yet." He looked at me, surprised. "What?" "Not yet," I repeated, feeling something inside me harden like steel. Because if I report her now, she'll deny everything. She'll say it was a misunderstanding, that I gave her permission. She'll cry, she'll play the victim, and Ryan will defend her. Then what do you propose? I propose we give her more rope. We let her believe her plan is working, and when she's at her most confident, when she thinks she's already won. I paused. Then we spring the trap. David studied me for a long moment. "Are you sure?" "Completely. This will require you to act, to pretend, to play her game." "I know. And to be willing for Ryan to see things that are going to break him." That part hurt, but I nodded. "It's the only way he'll see the truth." David took out his phone. "All right, then we're going to do this right. My investigator is going to install hidden security cameras in your house. Cámaras? Tiny ones. In strategic places. The living room, the kitchen, your bedroom. We're going to record every move Chloe makes, every conversation, every attempt at theft or manipulation. Is that legal? In your own home, recording someone who is committing crimes against you? Completely legal, and it will be irrefutable evidence." I stood up. I walked to the window. I could see the garden where Arthur and I planted the lemon tree when Ryan was born. That tree was huge now, its branches shading half the yard. "Do it," I said without turning. "Install the cameras, record everything. And what are you going to do?" I turned to face him. "I'm going to give her the greatest gift a con artist can receive." "What gift?" "A seemingly weak victim who is about to make a huge mistake." The next few days were pure theater. I became the confused old woman Chloe had always wanted me to be. I started forgetting things, names, dates, where I left my keys. "Oh, I'm so forgetful," I'd say with a nervous little laugh when Chloe looked at me. I could see her mentally noting every lapse. I started accidentally leaving documents on my desk, bank statements, an old will that left everything to Ryan. One afternoon I heard her sneak into my room while I was in the garden. The cameras David's team had installed recorded everything. That night, I reviewed the footage on my laptop. There was Chloe, in my room, going through my drawers, photographing my documents with her phone. I felt sick, but also satisfied. Every second of that video was evidence. I continued my performance. I started making comments about how tired I was of dealing with paperwork. "Oh, Chloe," I said one afternoon while she was helping me organize mail. "Sometimes I think I should just give Ryan power of attorney. Let him handle everything. I'm just too old for this." Her eyes glittered. "That's not a bad idea, Eleanor. That way you could relax." "Yes, maybe." I left the sentence hanging. That same day, the camera in the living room recorded a phone conversation. "Yeah, the old woman is caving," Chloe said. "Give it 1 more week and I'll have the power of attorney." "No, the son is useless. He does whatever I say." 800,000. "I already told you." Yes, same plan as in Santa Fe. But this time, it's not going to fail. David was right. This was her MO, perfected over years. But there was something else I needed, a thorn in my side. David, I said on the phone that night, I need one more thing. Chloe's husband, Mark Jenkins. I want you to go see him, in person. Show him pictures of Ryan. I want to know if Chloe has talked to him about us. What for? I just have a hunch. 3 days later, David returned with information that left me speechless. I spoke to Mark Jenkins, he said. I showed him the pictures of Ryan. You know what he told me? I shook my head. He said Chloe contacted him 2 months ago, asked to borrow $5,000, said she had an investment opportunity. Did he give it to her? No. But he told me something more interesting. Chloe bragged about Ryan. She told him, and I quote, that she'd found a fool with his own house and an old woman who's on her last legs. She said in a few months, she'd have enough money to disappear again. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. Not for me, I already knew who Chloe was. But for Ryan, my son, the man who was working 18 hours a day sending out resumes, who lay awake at night worried about his future, who loved that woman with every fiber of his being. He was just a fool to her, a tool, a means to an end. Mark is willing to testify, David continued, to swear to everything Chloe told him and to confirm their marriage is still active. Good, I said, my voice colder than I'd ever heard it, because it's almost time. Time for what? To spring the trap. That night I sat in front of my laptop and reviewed everything we had. Videos of Chloe stealing from me, audio of her phone calls planning the fraud, the forged documents, proof of her active marriage, testimonies from past victims, the attorney's statement, the bank records. It was enough, more than enough. But it was missing one thing, the perfect moment, the final blow that would make it all come crashing down. And then I had an idea David called risky and potentially explosive, but I called it poetic justice. The plan was simple in theory, brutal in execution. I was going to give Chloe exactly what she wanted, a weak, confused victim, ready to be manipulated. And then, when she thought she had won, I was going to show her who had been playing whom all along. But for it to work, I needed to give the performance of a lifetime. David, I said, when we met at a coffee shop far from my house, I need you to contact the buyer, that Mr. Wallace that Chloe brought to the house. And do what? Tell him the owner is interested in selling. Tell him to contact Chloe directly to coordinate a second visit. David frowned. You're going to give her more ammunition? I'm going to give her the world. And when she's completely wrapped up in it, I'm going to pull. He understood immediately. A slow smile spread across his face. You're more cunning than I remembered, Eleanor. Life taught me to be. Mr. Wallace contacted Chloe 2 days later. I heard the entire conversation from my room, thanks to the hidden mics. Miss Sanders? This is Mr. Wallace. I was contacted by an attorney, Mr. Stone. He said the owner is ready to move forward with the sale. Chloe's voice was practically singing. Yes, that's right. My mother-in-law has finally seen that it's for the best. Wonderful. Could we coordinate a second visit? I'd like to bring my architect to check the foundation this time. Of course. How about next Friday, in the afternoon, when my mother-in-law is resting, code for when she's confused. Excellent. We'll see you Friday at 4. When Chloe hung up, I heard her let out a little shriek of excitement. Then she dialed another number. Babe, it worked. The buyer wants to see the house again. No, your mom is totally on board. I told you she was caving. I just need you to help convince her, okay? Be sweet to her. Tell her it's for our own good. My son, my own son, being used as the final tool of manipulation. That night, Ryan came into my room. He knocked softly before entering. Mom, can I talk to you? Of course, honey. I closed the book I was pretending to read. Sit down. He sat on the edge of my bed with that hunched posture he got when he was worried. Chloe told me. You're considering selling the house? Oh, yes. I sighed theatrically. I'm just so tired, Ryan. This house is too much for me. And you two need to start your lives. Mom, you don't have to do this for us. But I want to. I took his hand. It was cold. You're my only son. I want to see you happy, settled. And if selling this house gives you and Chloe the chance to start fresh, I saw the conflict in his eyes. Part of him knew this was wrong, but another part, the part that loved Chloe, the part that wanted to believe her, was winning. Are you sure, Mom? Completely. A lie. Just promise me one thing. Anything. That you'll be smart with the money. That you won't waste it. That you'll build something good with it. Ryan hugged me. I promise we will, Mom. I promise we'll do this right. When he left my room, I had to bite my lip until it bled to keep from crying. Because my son, my good, naive son, had no idea he was a pawn in her fraud. The next few days were pure theater. I began acting as if I were in the early stages of dementia. I'd get confused in conversations, forget names, repeat questions. One afternoon, while Chloe and I were alone in the kitchen, I dropped the perfect bait. "Chloe," I said, my voice trembling, "I need you to help me with something." "Of course, Eleanor. What is it?" "It's just so much paperwork. So many things to sign. The bank called yesterday, and I didn't understand a word they said." I put my hand to my head. "I just feel like my mind isn't working like it used to." Chloe moved in with that fake compassion she had perfected. "Don't you worry. That's what Ryan and I are here for. To help you." "Really?" I looked at her with watery eyes. "Because I was thinking, maybe I should give you power of attorney, so you can handle things. You're younger. You understand all this modern stuff." Chloe's eyes lit up like it was Christmas. "Well, if you think that's necessary, Eleanor, I'd be happy to help. I just don't want to be a burden." "You could never be a burden." She took my hands. Cold, calculating hands. "Let me help you. We'll go to the lawyer together. We'll get all the papers fixed up, proper and legal, so you can have peace of mind." "You'd do that for me?" "Of course, Eleanor. We're family." Family. The word tasted like poison. "Then, tomorrow," I said. "Let's go tomorrow and fix everything." That night I called David. "Tomorrow, she's going to try to take me to a lawyer." "Which one?" "I don't know, but I bet it's not a real one. Or it's a corrupt one she works with." "Are you going to go?" "I'm going. And you're going to follow us." "Eleanor, this is dangerous." "I know, but I need evidence of her attempting to finalize the fraud. I need it recorded, documented, and irrefutable." There was a pause. "All right, but you're wearing a wire, and I'll be half a block away the entire time." The next morning, Chloe was radiant. "Eleanor, so glad you're up. I already made an appointment at the lawyer's office for 11. "So quickly?" "Well, he's a very busy man. We were lucky to get a spot." "Of course. Because he probably wasn't a real lawyer." I dressed slowly, acting out every movement as if it were difficult. David had given me a small device that looked like a decorative brooch, but was actually a camera and audio recorder. "Do I look okay?" I asked Chloe, gesturing to the brooch on my blouse. "You look beautiful, Eleanor." She had no idea she was recording her own conviction. We got into Chloe's car, a red compact she'd bought on sale months ago. She drove with the smile of a cat that had cornered a mouse. "You'll see," she said. "After today, everything will be so much easier. You won't have to worry about a thing." "Thank you, dear." I used the word intentionally. "I don't know what I'd do without you." The law office was in a neighborhood I didn't recognize, in an old building with peeling paint. Nothing like the professional offices I knew. We went up to the second floor. The plaque on the door said, "Mr. Bishop, attorney at law." We entered a small, poorly lit office that smelled like damp. A man in his 50s, overweight, with a cheap suit, greeted us with an oily smile. "Mrs. Morgan. Such a pleasure. Come in, come in." He gestured to a chair in front of his desk. Chloe sat next to me, holding my arm as if I were a frail child. Well, the fake lawyer began. "I understand you wish to grant a general power of attorney to Miss Sanders here." "That's right," I said in a weak voice. "I'm just so tired. I need help." "Perfect. I have the document right here, all prepared." He pulled out some papers. "I just need you to read it and sign." He passed me the document. I started to read it slowly, squinting as if I was having trouble. It was exactly what I expected. A sweeping power of attorney giving Chloe total control over all my assets. To sell, mortgage, dispose, everything. Is it? Is it ready? I asked, feigning confusion. But we just got here. Oh, miss. Sanders sent me all the information ahead of time, the fake lawyer explained. To speed up the process, at your age, it's best not to tire you out with too much running around. At my age. Very considerate, I murmured. Chloe squeezed my arm. Sign here, Eleanor. And here. And here. I took the pen. I moved it toward the paper. And then I stopped. You know what? I said, putting the pen down. I think I'd better think about this a little more. The atmosphere in the office changed instantly. Excuse me? Chloe said, her voice tight. It's a big decision. Maybe I should talk to Ryan about it first. But you did talk to Ryan, Eleanor. He's on board. Oh, did I? When? I faked confusion. I don't remember. Last night, Eleanor. Did you forget already? Her voice was getting irritated. The fake lawyer chimed in. Mrs. Morgan, I'd really recommend you sign today. These appointments are very difficult to reschedule. But I'm just not sure. I put my hands to my head. My head is all fuzzy today. Maybe another day. No, Chloe almost shouted. She composed herself instantly. I mean, Eleanor, we're already here. Mr. Bishop did us the favor of seeing us. Just pick up the pen and sign. It's for your own good. For my good? I looked her directly in the eyes. And for the first time in weeks, I let her see something real in my gaze. Something hard. Something dangerous. Or for yours? She turned pale. The fake lawyer tried to intervene again. But I was already standing up. You know what? I think I'm going to leave. I don't feel well. Eleanor, wait. I said I'm leaving. My voice was firmer than it had been in weeks. I walked to the door. Chloe followed, trying to stop me, but I was already in the hallway. I went down the stairs as fast as I could. I heard Chloe behind me, calling my name, but I didn't stop. I burst out onto the street, and there was David, waiting in his car half a block down, exactly as planned. I jumped in. Go. He obeyed without question. I looked in the side view mirror. Chloe had come out onto the sidewalk, looking around wildly, her phone in her hand, with an expression of barely disguised panic. Did you get it all? David asked. I touched the brooch on my blouse. Every last word. Then, it's almost time. Yes, I said, feeling my heart beat strong and steady. It's almost time for Chloe to meet the real Eleanor Morgan. 3 days passed. 3 days in which Chloe tried to act as if nothing had happened. 3 days of forced smiles and questions disguised as concern. Are you feeling all right, Eleanor? You seemed so upset at the lawyer's office. I'm perfectly fine, I'd answer, my voice neutral. I gave her no explanations. I gave her no peace. I just gave her silence. And silence, I discovered, was the most powerful weapon of all. I watched her squirm. I watched her mind work, trying to figure out what went wrong, if I suspected something, if she needed to change her strategy. But she didn't know it was already too late. On Wednesday afternoon, while Chloe was in the living room on a hushed phone call, I was in my room coordinating the final move. David, I said over the phone, it's time. Arrange the dinner for Friday. Are you completely sure? There's no going back after this. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. All right, I'll contact everyone involved. Did Mark Jenkins confirm? He confirmed. He's flying in from Phoenix. And Mr. Wallace, the buyer? He confirmed too. Though he's still confused about why you're inviting him to dinner. He'll understand on Friday. And Ryan? Have you told him? That question stung. No, he's going to find out with everyone else. I need him to see it all at once. It's the only way. There was a pause. This is going to hurt, Eleanor. I know. But the pain of a truth is better than the comfort of a lie. On Thursday night, at dinner, I dropped the final bait. Chloe, Ryan, I said, as we ate in silence. I want to host a family dinner on Friday. They both looked at me, surprised. A dinner? Ryan asked. Yes. I've been doing a lot of thinking, and I think it's time to resolve things. To talk about the future, With clarity, I looked at them both. I want to invite a few important people so we can make decisions together. As a family, Chloe's smile returned instantly. That sounds perfect, Eleanor. Who do you want to invite? My lawyer, David Stone. Mr. Wallace. That buyer you brought over. The attorney who can advise us on the paperwork. I paused. And a few other people I think should be present. Other people? It's a surprise, I smiled. But I promise you, everything will be very clear by Friday. Chloe tried to hide her unease, but I saw it. That shadow of doubt crossing her face. Sounds nice, she said finally. Excellent. Dinner will be at 7 o'clock. Dress nicely. It's going to be a memorable night. She had no idea just how memorable. Friday dawned with a clear sky. Ironic, considering the storm that was about to break, I spent the morning cooking. I made my pot roast, mashed potatoes, green beans, and homemade apple pie, the recipes Arthur loved, the ones I made for special occasions. Chloe watched me from the kitchen doorway, her expression confused. Do you need help, Eleanor? No, thank you. I want to do it myself today, but it's so much work. I like cooking. It reminds me of better times. At 5 o'clock, I began to set the dining room table. I brought out the good china, the set I only used on Christmas, the silver cutlery, the crystal glasses. The table looked beautiful, elegant, dignified, like a stage for what was to come. At 6, I took a long bath. I put on a navy blue dress I hadn't worn since Arthur's funeral. I did my makeup carefully. I put my hair up in an elegant bun. When I came downstairs, Ryan looked at me, stunned. Mom, you look beautiful. Thank you, honey. I kissed his cheek. Today is an important day. Chloe came down minutes later. A tight red dress, high heels, too much makeup. She looked like what she was, a desperate woman trying to impress. At 7 o'clock on the dot, the doorbell rang. I'll get it, I said. It was David. Impeccable suit, briefcase in hand, serious expression. Eleanor. He kissed my cheek. Ready? Ready. We walked into the dining room. Ryan and Chloe were already seated. Ryan, Chloe, you remember Mr. Stone? They both nodded, a tense politeness in the air. The doorbell rang again. It was Mr. Wallace, the buyer. He looked confused, but polite. Mrs. Morgan. Thank you for the invitation, though I'm not sure I understand. It will all be clear soon, Mr. Wallace. Please come in. I sat him at the table. Chloe watched him with a wary expression. The doorbell rang again. This time it was Mr. Harrison, the real attorney, the one whose name she had forged. Mr. Harrison, thank you for coming. Mrs. Morgan, when you explained the situation, I couldn't refuse. Chloe had turned considerably paler. Mom, Ryan said, what is going on? Patience, son. And then, the guest no one expected. I answered the door myself this time, and when I opened it, there he was. Mark Jenkins, Chloe's legal husband, a man in his early 40s, with a face weathered by sun and hard work. He was wearing clean jeans and a dress shirt. He had dressed for the occasion. Mrs. Morgan, he said respectfully. Mark, thank you for coming all this way. It's the least I can do. I led him to the dining room, and when Chloe saw him, the color drained from her face completely. Mark? She whispered. Ryan looked between them, confused. Mom, who is this man? Ryan, I said, my voice firm. I'd like you to meet Mark Jenkins, Chloe's husband. The silence that followed was absolute. What? Ryan's voice was a squeak. Chloe shot up from her chair. This is a misunderstanding. I can explain. Sit down. My voice cut the air like a whip. Something in my tone made her obey. I stood at the head of the table. Everyone was looking at me, but I only had eyes for Chloe. This dinner is about the truth, I began. A truth that's been buried under lies for 2 years. Mom, what are you talking about? Ryan looked completely lost. Let me show you, son. I nodded to David. He took his laptop from his briefcase and placed it on the table. He connected it to a small, portable projector, which aimed at the blank dining room wall. We're going to watch a movie, I said. The story of how Chloe Sanders has been destroying our family. I pressed play. The first image that appeared was a marriage certificate. Chloe and Mark's. Date: March 14th, 2017. Chloe is legally married, I said. She never got divorced. Your relationship with her, Ryan, is legally invalid. You're the other man, not the partner. Ryan stared at the screen as if he'd been hit. The next image: bank statements, Chloe's debts. $44,000. This is why she's here. Not for love, for money. Next, the recorded phone calls. Chloe's voice saying, "The old woman is caving and same plan as in Santa Fe." Then, the videos of her entering my room, going through my drawers, photographing my documents, stealing from my safe. She stole $8,000 of my savings. And finally, the forged documents. The power of attorney with my imitated signature. The fake letter to the attorney. She tried to steal my house using forged documents. Forgery, fraud, theft. Every image was a blow. Every document, a stab. Ryan had stopped breathing. Literally. He was frozen, eyes fixed on the wall, watching his reality crumble. Chloe tried to stand, but Mr. Harrison, the real attorney, spoke. "Miss Sanders, I'd recommend you stay seated. I have already filed a formal complaint with the district attorney's office. There is a warrant for your arrest in process." She collapsed back into her chair. "No," was all she could say. I turned to Mark. "Mr. Jenkins, would you please tell us what Chloe told you when she contacted you 2 months ago?" Mark nodded, looking at Chloe with a mix of pity and disgust. "She told me she'd found a fool with his own house and an old woman who's on her last legs. She said she'd soon have enough money to disappear again. She asked me to loan her $5,000 to speed up the plan." Ryan made a sound, something between a sob and a choked scream. "Ryan." Chloe reached for him, but he flinched away as if her touch burned. "Don't touch me." His voice was trembling. Don't you dare touch me." I turned to Mr. Wallace, who was watching with wide eyes. "Mr. Wallace, you were contacted by this woman to buy a property she has no right to sell. The $15,000 you gave her in earnest money was stolen. David will help you recover it and file your own complaint." The man just nodded numbly, still in shock. Finally, I turned to Chloe. She was crying, tears cutting black tracks through her perfect makeup. "Please," she begged. I can explain." "There is nothing to explain." My voice was ice. "You are a professional con artist, a criminal who has destroyed entire families. And you thought I would be your next victim. Eleanor, please, don't call me Eleanor." Every word was poison. "You are not family. You never were. You are a predator who saw weakness and attacked. But you made one mistake." "What?" I leaned toward her, looking her dead in the eye. "You assumed that because I'm 68 years old, I was finished, that I was weak, helpless, that you could manipulate me and destroy me without consequences." I smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "You were wrong, because I built this house with my own hands. I have survived things that would have broken you into 1,000 pieces. And I was not going to let some 2-bit criminal take away everything I've ever fought for." I stood up straight. "David, call the authorities." "No," Chloe shot up. "Ryan, say something, defend me." All eyes turned to my son. Ryan was sitting, his hands flat on the table, staring at them as if they weren't his. His eyes were red, his face shattered. When he spoke, his voice was broken. "Was any of it real? Ever?" Chloe opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. I did love you." "Liar," the word snapped. "It was all a lie. From the beginning." He stood up slowly. He walked toward her, and for a moment, I thought he might hug her, forgive her, be the weak man she believed he was. But instead, he stopped in front of her and said the only thing that mattered. "I want you out of this house." He paused. "Now." "Ryan, now!" His shout echoed in the dining room. Chloe stumbled back, tripping on her chair. She looked around for support, but only found hard, accusing stares. "You have no right." she started. But then, the authorities arrived. 2 detectives, a man and a woman. They had the warrant. Chloe Ann Sanders? She nodded weakly. You're under arrest for forgery, fraud, and theft. You have the right to remain silent. They handcuffed her right there, in my dining room, on the hardwood floors I had laid with my own hands. As they led her away, she looked at me one last time. There was no pleading in her eyes, just pure, unfiltered hatred. This isn't over, she hissed. For you, it is, I replied. It ended the day you decided Eleanor Morgan was an easy target. They took her away. The door closed, and the silence that was left was deafening. After everyone had gone, the house was quiet, a different kind of quiet, not filled with tension or manipulation. It was an empty, hollow quiet. Ryan was still sitting in the dining room. He hadn't moved since they took Chloe. He just stared at his hands on the table, as if searching for answers in the lines of his palms. I sat down across from him. Son, don't, he said, his voice rough. Just wait. The minutes passed like hours. Finally, he looked up. His eyes were red, swollen. How long did you know? Weeks. David investigated everything after I found the fake documents. And you didn't tell me? You needed to see it for yourself. If I had just told you, you wouldn't have believed me. He ran his hands over his face. You're right. I wouldn't have. I would have defended her. A bitter laugh escaped his throat. What kind of idiot am I? You're not an idiot. You were manipulated by a professional. I lived with her for 2 years, Mom. I slept next to her. I told her I loved her. His voice cracked. How did I not see it? Because love blinds us. And she was very good at what she did. Ryan shook his head. I treated you badly. I let her treat you badly. I saw you eating alone and I didn't say anything. I watched her disrespect you and I. His voice broke. How can you even look at me? I stood up. I walked around the table. I knelt by his chair and took his face in my hands. Because you are my son. And sons make mistakes. But they also learn from them. I don't deserve your forgiveness. It's not something you deserve. It's something I give. Because I love you. I wiped a tear from his cheek. But I need you to understand something, Ryan. This can never happen again. I need you to learn to value what you have. To respect the person who has given you everything. He nodded, crying like I hadn't seen him cry since he was a child. I'm so sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry. I know, honey. I know. I held him. And in that hug, I felt all of it. The pain, the betrayal, the forgiveness, the hope. I'll make it up to you, he said against my shoulder. I don't know how, but I will. I know how. I pulled back. You're moving out. He froze. What? I pulled an envelope from my pocket. I had prepared it days ago. Years ago, I bought a small condo, an investment. It's over in the Capitol Hill neighborhood. 2 bedrooms, good location. I placed the envelope in front of him. The deed is in here. It's yours, but with conditions. Mom, I can't accept this. Condition 1. You're going to live alone. You're going to learn who you are without depending on anyone. Not me, and not any woman. He swallowed. He nodded. Condition 2. You're going to work. I don't care what it is, but you will support yourself with your own effort. I will. Condition 3. Every Sunday you come here for dinner, and we are going to rebuild what was broken. As mother and son, as a real family. His eyes filled with tears again. Why are you doing this? After everything? Because you're my son, and I believe in second chances. I stood up. But this is your only one, Ryan. There won't be a third. He took the envelope with shaking hands. He opened it. He saw the deed. Thank you, Mom. I swear I won't let you down. More importantly, don't let yourself down. He stayed that night. His last night in this house as a resident. The next morning, he packed his things. It wasn't much. 1 suitcase, a few boxes. At the door, he hugged me tight. I love you, Mom. I love you too, Son. Always. He left, and I closed the door, knowing that for the first time in 2 years, my house was mine again. The following months brought peace. Chloe was sentenced to 8 years in prison. Forgery, fraud, theft. Her history of prior victims weighed heavily in the sentence. Mr. Pryforce Sive Wallace got his money back. He even thanked me for exposing her. Mark Jenkins finally filed for divorce. And I renovated my house. Not the structure, the soul of it. I painted walls. I changed furniture. I removed every last trace of Chloe. I turned the study into a small architectural workshop. I started giving free design classes to older women who wanted to learn a new skill. Ryan kept his word. Every Sunday, he shows up with flowers or fresh bread. We eat together. We talk. Really talk. And slowly, very slowly, we are rebuilding what was broken. Today, as I write this, sitting in my garden, looking at the lemon tree that Arthur and I planted 43 years ago, I understand something fundamental. True wealth isn't in what you own. It's in what you refuse to let anyone take from you. Your dignity, your peace, your home, your soul. Chloe tried to take it all, but she forgot one essential thing. Women like me aren't built on easy days. We are forged in storms. And when the storm passes, we are still standing, stronger than before. If this story touched your heart, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. Has anything similar happened to you? Do you know someone who needs to hear this? Give it a like, share, and subscribe for more real-life stories that remind us it's never too late to defend what is yours, because dignity has no age. And the old lionesses always have the sharpest claws. End.